Somewhere beneath the ice, somewhere cold and deep, that's where we found it. Sleeping through the years, we brought it to the light and took it home. Where do we go? Blooming. There we go. Blooming. 30,000 years. 30,000 years. She carried a basket full, dried meat and currants, picked flowers on her way, chopped her posy in the grass, lost in the moonlight for an age or two. Good evening. I know it is late. QRP Life says, how did I lose my channel membership? I don't even see the option for membership anymore. Well, you should have the option for membership. I'm not sure. I mean, we just got... Chris Lamb just became a new member. Welcome, Chris. So there should be an option. It may be something that you have to do via desktop. So I'm not sure. Not sure what's going on there. But thank you very much for the super chat, QRP Life. Welcome aboard, Chris. Thank you, Cassie. D to the G. The man. Yo. Yo, Cassie. Yo. D to the G in the house. Hey, Adam. Thank you, man. Adam says, because you're awesome, got hooked when I came across your sugarcane / cane syrup video. Hey, I think you're pretty awesome too, Adam. You got cute kids. And I remember that incredible pineapple that you grew and emailed to me. It was like, hey, man, you're doing great with those things. Your pineapples look better than my pineapples do. But, you know, this happens a lot. So I want to say good evening to everybody. I was going to do a stream yesterday, but I was a little bit shook up, actually. I spent the day working on putting together the new biochar grinder crusher, but my mind was not in it, and my heart was not in it, because this last week we lost a little good gardener, not one of my children, but one of you good gardeners wrote in to tell me that a 23-month-old son was killed, and asked me to pray. And I can't share more details because they're trying to avoid media and all that. But it really shook me up. And so, of course, I mean, when somebody writes you and says, will you pray? Yes, absolutely. But it's hard, what do you say, I can't imagine. So if you would, I can't give you guys a name, but if you would pray for this family that needs it right now. The Lord knows who they are. Just pray for them. Losing a child is a horrible thing, and this is one of our group. And anyhow, it's like I kind of want to do a fun live stream, and but I feel like I need to share that, and I need you guys to pray too, because the only person I think that can pull anything good out of this evil world is the Lord. It's God. That's it. I mean, we live in occupied territory. We live in a very demented world. I like to say, it's a wonderful world, but it's not really. There are wonderful things about it, but I mean, as anybody who's lost somebody in their family knows, it's not wonderful. There are times where things end, even the most wonderful things in the world. And, I trust that the Lord will balance things out in eternity. And I trust in Jesus Christ. I trust in a God who let his own son die, who watched his own son die because wicked men decided to kill him, and brought him back to life as the firstborn of of a whole new deal. And believing in Jesus is the way to enjoy life everlasting, and just trusting that God has a plan. So I wanted to say that before, and just pray for this family. And we've been praying as a family, but it was just one of those, my gosh. I'm like, how am I supposed to? I don't know. But anyhow, it was one of our people, and we lost a little gardener. So anyhow, okay. Well, let's talk about gardening. I'll tell you what we are working on right now. As you know, probably, the summer is creeping in. It certainly doesn't feel like spring anymore. It doesn't the weather is not with us anymore. At least in the South, the weather is not pleasant. The weather has gotten up into the 90s, and this is the time when things pick up mildew. This is the time when things get rough. This is the time when all of your very healthy and beautiful carrots and cabbages, etc., start to fall to pieces. So it's kind of a time, at least in this climate, where the reset is happening. You pretty much get two growing seasons in the South. You get spring and you get fall. And summer is terrible. Summer is not the best time for gardening. It's not like you get this long period of time with, like, hey, I could grow some vegetables that, like, I'll just plant another couple of rounds of corn or something. No, if you plant your corn late, it's over. It's over. The time for corn is done. Down where we lived in the tropics before, the weather was always between about 74 and 89 degrees year round. The only real delineation between seasons was rainy season and dry season. The dry season got a little hotter than the rainy season, even though the rainy season was in summer. But the thing about that is you didn't really have to plan. You know, you could just simply put out irrigation for the dry season and grow good stuff all year round. Like you could grow corn 4 times for a short type of a corn, like a short season corn. In a grain corn, you could grow at least 3 times. Grain corn usually takes 120 days. The sweet corn's usually more like 85 days. So you get like grain corn 3 times a year. I mean, we did some crazy good gardening in the dry season, despite the weather not being with us. We carried water to things and watered with the hose and all that kind of stuff, but it worked. But here it doesn't work that way, because there's not the moderating influence of the ocean or a sea breeze. So you get this really brutal weather where it goes from 80s in spring to suddenly 90s to into the hundreds, and then back down to the 90s, and then back down to the 80s, say September or October, depending on the year, because it swings back and forth from year to year. And of course, it does seem like the weather has been really weird lately, up and down and all over the place. So you can't really count on it not getting hot early, and you can't really count on there not getting a late frost. I mean, there's a lot of little tricks that are hard to. You almost kind of have to feel it out year by year. You can't just say, this is it, this is it, this is the way it's going to go. But, it's been in the mid 90s with a humidity level that's ridiculous here lately. It's just so hot in the day, and the air is still. And this is the breeding time for funguses and insects. And you watch the ants run around, and the ants are running like running backs on a football field. They're just hauling it. They're like, yeah, it's so hot, I'm just flying. They're cold-blooded. So now they're like, their metabolisms are like higher than mine is. Rah! The wasps are just. There's this type of wasp that goes hunting along the grass here. I think it's like a tarantula hawk type. It basically half runs, half flies along the grass, and it's just like skipping around through the grass. And it's so frenetic. It's like, man, crazy. So you lose your spring weather, and it's over. I got to answer this super chat here, which I don't want to miss. Cooper sends a super chat and says, I'll buy 5 CDs if you make them. I'll probably do it as a digital download. I don't know if I'll actually print CDs, but I figure out a way to burn CDs for you. But seriously, how does your worm compost system work exactly? Do you just flush it with water? Don't you have to empty it to keep adding more compostable materials? That's a good question. What is happening in a bin like this? When I did it before, I had a very similar system. I know I talked a lot about Jeff Lawton's bathtub worm bin, but before I ever saw Jeff Lawton's system, I had done something pretty similar in an old dishwasher. And I had done it in Rubbermaid bins as well. And at one point, I had an old refrigerator with my compost pile / worm bin in it. And yeah, you would be surprised by how much material those worms can continually chew through, and really how much water is in a lot of the materials that we compost. What happens is you go and throw in a half a bucket of kitchen scraps, and they get chewed up and disappeared and rotted down, and the water leaks out the bottom of it, and you've probably only raised the level of the bin by like that much. You could probably throw 55 gallons of kitchen scraps in there over the next 6 months and still not have to empty the bathtub. Because what happens is there's a ton of water in most of that material that you're throwing in. The actual remains are not that much when you take the water out of it. I remember they say, the human body's like 3,000% water and it's only like 1%. And that last 1% is bacteria, like whatever. But you hear these statistics about how much water is in different things. This plant is like 92% water, A jellyfish is 99.8% water. It's kind of like that. I mean, there's carbon in there, there's some minerals in it and stuff, but when they chew it down and it wilts out and stuff, there's not much to it. I mean, I have some tobacco leaf right here from my garden. This tobacco leaf was pretty fleshy before, but it's getting kind of crunchy now, and it's getting thinner and thinner. And when it actually dries all the way out in the midrib and everything have dried, if I crush it up, it's like that much, smashed material if you were to grind it down. So you could keep throwing, material in there for a pretty long time. But over time, it will fill up and you'll get those worm castings. Part of that material gets turned into worms because the worms will keep breeding as long as you keep giving them food. And then part of it turns into the worm castings, which are left behind, which the worms will eat again and again and again. They're constantly, chewing their way through that stuff, turning it and chewing it and turning it and chewing it, So when you have that bin system going, you're probably not going to have to harvest the material for quite a while. And when it gets around to the point where you're ready to harvest it, you simply put shade one end of the bin and put a bunch of fresh food down there to rot, and it'll just kind of move. The worms will move over to that area over the next week or so, and then you can go and dig the other end of it, and you don't have much left. So that's my answer. But when I do get around to harvesting it, if I harvest the castings and stuff out, we'll see it. I'll show it to you guys. The video that I did, I finished today. I got finished way too late to post it today. So yes, this is indeed a sock with eyes. It's also a excellent pop filter for this microphone. Any ideas on getting rid of squash bugs? Drew asks. Yeah, squash bugs are an absolute pain in the neck. If you can catch them early in the season when you first see them in little bright clusters of nymphs hanging out on the leaves, that's the best. Later in the year, it's just a constant fight. I pretty much give up by summer, but earlier in the year, sometimes I'll have the kids go around and knock them into, if you have a little bit of soapy water, you can knock them into it. But I have so much life in my garden, I don't really want to spray anything to get rid of them. I'm sure there's plenty of things that you could spray to kill them, but I don't want to kill them because I would end up killing a bunch of other stuff. They have been wreaking havoc on my tomatoes now. It's trouble. Thank you, QRP Life. Welcome back. Yeah, flamethrower will definitely get rid of the squash bugs. Matthew says, can I use worms from my compost pile? Yes. Generally, the worms that are working their way through the top of a compost pile area, like there's small ones, like the little red worms and stuff, those are composting worms. But there are worms that live around the edges of a compost pile and kind of chew their way up through, and they take what they want around the edges. I was just talking to a guy yesterday, really sharp dude. I met him when I was driving through town. I saw his garden, and I have seen his garden for some time, and I thought, I've got to go visit this guy. If I ever see him out in his garden, I'm just going to stop my car and go say hi. And so I did. I was in the car with Rachel, and I'm like, Rachel, there he is. There's that guy with the garden. I'm going to stop. She's like, where are you going to park? I said, I don't know. I'll find a spot. I just pulled over on the side of the road and pulled up a side road and then ran across the street to where he was gardening. Hi, can I introduce myself? I'm David. So I left Rachel in the car. She's like, just leave me. I'm not doing this. I'm not running through somebody's yard. But anyhow, I went over and I met him, and one of the things he was doing was raising worms, and he was telling me that he just makes an area of ground really fertile. He seeded it with some worms years ago, and he continually feeds in scraps and he gives them some chicken feed. He says they love chicken feed. When it gets wet and soppy in the ground and starts to rot, he says the worms go crazy for it. So that keeps them around. He throws a little chicken feed in now and again to keep them going. So it was kind of interesting. But he said that some of them, the ones that get into the top of the pile and wiggle around, he says you got a lot of red wigglers. And he says they lay a lot of eggs, and you'll see their little cocoons. And then he says there's other ones that hang out around the edges. There's another type of wiggling worm, but that's another angling worm. And he says those are more of a soil worm. So there's difference. There's worms that'll live in the soil, and there's worms that'll live in a bin. So, Des BTW says, what are your suggestions on gardening in red compact dirt? First thing I would do is put down gypsum. If there's any clay, if it's a hard clay, put down gypsum because it will help break it up into soil clods. And then the other thing is I would get a soil test. Logan Labs. If you go to Logan Labs online, you can send them a soil test, and they'll tell you what your pH is, what your minerals are, what you need for the soil. Then you'll know what to balance it with. Now, that's not going to deal with the structure. The gypsum is going to help with the structure, but you'll get an idea of what nutrients your soil has or does not have. Then, if you are in an area where you're, okay, let me put it this way. Some climates slugs are a big problem, and some they are not. If you're in an area where slugs are a big issue, this may not work. But if you're in an area where slugs are not a big issue, deep mulching over clay will really help loosen it up over time. It brings the worms in. The worms start turning that organic material down into the soil. It starts to approximate soil. But if you're in an area where slugs are a problem and you try to garden and mulch, the slugs will just destroy your garden. It's unbelievable how many slugs will show up after a year of mulching. I'm getting a lot of slugs in my beds right now where I've mulched. So, okay, South Alabama. Yeah, you probably, I know what you're talking about. That's some ugly stuff. You're probably not far away from me. I'm near Atmore area, but I've got the nasty acid sand. You probably have the acid red clay sand. It's kind of a mix. But I would get a soil test. I would put down gypsum, and you might look at doing cover crops and tilling them under to rot. That'll help too. Let's see what we got here. Oh, I wanted to show you guys something. Let me see. I have, if any of you guys are interested, in the Everglades tomato seeds, my daughter now has a shop to sell our Everglades tomato seeds. So you can get them there. I just dropped a link in the chat. So that's harvested right out of our gardens. If you are interested. So this is a little experiment. I'm trying to get my children are interested in starting businesses. They're getting a little older. They want jobs and work. And so I said, why don't we save some of those Everglades tomato seeds? And so we did. And she's been working at it. She had a great big fermenting bucket of them out there this morning. So so if you want them, there they are. They'll be lovingly sent to you, and you can grow the same variety that Karen sent to me. They're super vigorous, crazy, excellent. So, yeah, check that out. And now, here's the other thing. This is funny. My son said, hey, wait a minute. No, I gotta send this right now. He's trying to sell a guitar, but I'm gonna post that later, because anyhow, it's not that pertinent. But we're going. I will list it later. But my son is doing this business. He's not quite set up yet. He's doing a business where he's fixing guitars and basses and reselling them, which I think is awesome because, I mean, hey, we're a musical family. It's fun. So, anyhow, yeah, it is good to see the kids making money. I want them to branch out and start their own businesses. I remember when I was younger, I would hit garage sales and I would resell things on eBay. I would fix things up. I would take photos for people. I did all kinds of different jobs. House painting. I moved furniture. It's all good. You know, you learn a lot from the people you work with over time. And you learn what you love and you learn what you don't love. So, he is persistent with that guitar, Scott. Southern Exposure has Everglades tomatoes. Yes, but so does my daughter. Actually, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, you know, they also have my book, Grow or Die, which I think is really cool. They ordered them from me. They ordered a box. I'm like, yes! I've been promoting Southern Exposure Seed Exchange for years. I love their seed selection. But you know, now, this time of year, right? Some of you guys are probably just getting started, really, in gardening. The further north you get, June, it's still nice. It's a good time to plant. I mean, you're like, hey, I think we're hitting our last frost date here, you know. Because down here, it's like, oh my gosh, it's over. People from further north were going, I can't believe you're harvesting potatoes already. Or look at how tall your corn is. What about that knee-high by July? No, if it's not head-high by June, it's too late. Totally different. It's crazy. So, yeah, there is a bean, or there's a couple of beans I would like to grow. And I'll ask you guys this. I was talking to Rachel about this yesterday. For years, I've loved the idea of growing shell beans. Like old varieties. They say that there are soup bean varieties that taste great. But I've always had problems with getting dry beans because of our climate in Florida. And then when we were in the tropics, I got some bean varieties to try, but they were all taken by diseases. The humidity and other things wrecked them. I am looking for shell beans that you could grow to dry beans that will work well in a hot, humid spring and summer. So they should be drying down generally right about now, right as the rains are coming in, right as it's like we're getting into, hey, there's a tropical depression coming this weekend, you know. If you guys have any suggestions on shell bean varieties that you like dry bean varieties that have a good flavor and you think would dry down for us, or if you have suggestions on growing them that will get them through. I like the idea of beans as a staple, but I've always done way better with green beans than I've done with dry beans. The only dry beans that I managed to pull off well was southern peas, black-eyed peas. I did well with black-eyed peas. We grew some Cabarica beans, but they were pretty tasteless, and half of them rotted in the pods. They would actually start to mold inside of the pods, and sometimes they would sprout because it was wet. I did try Scarlet Runners, Drew. I tried them in Florida. They hated it. They did not want to make me beans. I was very disappointed. I may try them again here because I think they're beautiful. But I think it's like Phaseolus cassineus. They're beautiful, but they did not like that Florida weather. Speckled butter beans. So I think speckled butter beans are a type of lima. They probably would. I didn't have very much luck with lima beans in Florida, but I had great luck with them in the Caribbean. They grew like crazy. They did very well. Florida, it seems like it gets too hot and they start to be unhappy and they rot. I'm Goon says, do you think that growing tomatoes in a compact fashion in a really hot, non-humid climate will help protect them from the heat? Probably possibly, but you might do better at growing them in about half shade. You know, it might help. Fadista said my black-eyed peas and black beans had to be taken out early due to the moisture. I got small, dry beans. Yes, it's happened. I fix air conditioners in Tucson. Fight me. Do I really hate the Z word? You know what? Let me give you some comments on the Z word. I had a lot of people giving me a hard time over that. Not all over, here's one, for example. Benny Walsh asks, have you ever invested in a psych eval? Let's see. Here we go. Here's another one. Another answer to the issue from Denise. Sorry, are you kidding me? That zucchini... Oh, sorry, kids. That was just beautiful and could be used in so many recipes. Wow, you must have had a bad incident with one when you were younger. Yeah. So, here's another one. Linda is concerned. I just have to know. I just have to know. I've never seen you have such a visceral reaction to anything like you did for the... What's with that? Are you allergic? And so I tell her exactly what happened. When I was young, a zucchini snuck into my bedroom at night and bit me on the face when I was sleeping. You don't get over that sort of thing. I guess you don't like the Z word, Dusty Splinter says. I tell him to watch his mouth because it's a family channel, obviously. And then he says, wondering the backstory on your disdain. I say, well, my mother slipped on one and fell down the stairs when I was a baby, throwing me in the process and causing a severe head injury. I've never recovered. So I don't know. I mean, people don't seem to understand how deep this thing goes. Luke Love says, so happy this was a long vid. I'm not sure what your deal is with the Z word, but I thought it was hilarious how skeptical you were to put those Brazilian cucumbers in the basket since they look like a blank cross. LOL, the last 36. And I say, our van ran into a huge truck filled with the Z word when I was little. We never made it to my Little League championship game, and my hopes for a Major League Baseball career were ruined. Am I supposed to like it after all that? No, of course not. Okay, Carolyn says, speckled beans grow well in the Gainesville, La Crosse area. I know one farmer that grows lots and lots of acres. Okay, there's one. Just wanted to try. Banner! Banner! Okay, I'll try some limas then. Irene Gold says, I am an absolute beginner. Do you have some suggestions for me? I am in North Florida. Yes. If you do not own my book, Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening, that is my guidebook to new gardeners in Florida. The other book that I wrote for Florida Survival Gardening, is more on growing all of your own food, whereas Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening is just what it says. It is the way to easily grow food in Florida. And I base it on the vegetables that we tried and tested that did really well pretty much no matter what. And so I go through those vegetables, tell you how to grow them, and it makes a big difference if you grow plants that are adapted to Florida. A lot of Florida gardening people are trying to force northern climate crops to work in Florida, and they don't that well. It's a lot more work. For example, you can grow sweet potatoes very easily. White potatoes are hit or miss. Some people do okay, some people don't. Sweet potatoes are almost always a winner. Cassava grows really well. True yams grow really, really well. So there you have like some super good root crops. Very easy root crops. You can also grow yard-long beans really, really well. But a lot of your bush beans, when it gets to the summer, they give up. You got to get your timing right if you want to grow some of those northern crops. But when it gets to summer, all of this stuff is out the window, except for your vegetables that are, say, from Southeast Asia, which just keep kicking along. So large tomatoes don't do very well. Usually it's a lot of work. You can make it work, but it is not that easy. It takes serious effort. But if you grow some smaller tomatoes, like the Everglades tomatoes that my daughter has, which I just posted the link. My daughter is selling seeds for Everglades tomatoes. That's like super, super simple, easy to grow, and they go through, you know. I Am Goon says, where do you get stuff like true yams? You make friends with people. That helps. Oh, thank you, Irene. Irene says, that's why I got some seeds for your daughter's store. That's wonderful. She's going to be so thrilled. She's been looking for work, and I'm like, I know what you could do. I know what you could do. She's such a good gardener already. The true yams you can also pick up in like ethnic markets, and you could get them in Publix. You could go and buy what are called name yams, or nyame, Name yams, and you can cut them into pieces, dust them with ashes, plant them. They will grow roots for you that are like this big. And they're so easy, and they're perennial. You can dig them after 2 years, and they're really good, you know. So, she's not selling any other seeds yet. Probably soon. Another thing, yeah, Brett says Florida sand. You'd be surprised what you can grow in. Oh, you can grow tons of stuff. And as a matter of fact, you can grow. There's a lot of perennials that grow really, really well in Florida, like mulberries. People want to grow like, I'm going to grow blackberries. Well, blackberries will grow okay, but mulberries are like a weed. You could plant a mulberry tree and get like 6 gallons of fruit off of it in a couple of years. It's just like a beautiful, amazing amount of organic berries. And it's just a matter of, you know, planting with the climate rather than trying to fight it. But as for the sand, if you make like compost teas or Dave's fetid swamp water, if you foliar feed with weak fertilizers regularly, you know, everything leaches through the sand. So if you're watering with weak fertilizer solutions, like there's a little bit of fertilizer in the water as you water, it makes a big, big difference. The sand will hold your roots in place. It's hard to build it into soil. It can be done, but it tends to just revert to sand pretty quickly. So like doing up north, like they do up north, make a bunch of compost and build your soil up over time. It's really hard to maintain it in Florida. It just tends to burn out because of the heat, the sand, the humidity, and you know, the rain. And so if you are foliar feeding, you can often keep stuff growing quite well even in pretty poor soil. Stuff just runs, and it could still be quite mineral, nutrient rich crops. So TA says my ube is doing well here in South Florida. Yeah, they are good. They're easy to grow and fun. And also, if you're looking for weird or cool stuff, I highly recommend going and hanging out with other gardeners, finding other gardeners, finding gardening meetup groups and stuff in your area, trading seeds. If you see somebody gardening by the side of the road, go introduce yourself, ask what they're growing, ask how they grow for it, how they do it, what works, what doesn't, you know. It's cool. Eric says, got some sea grape coming, makes a great jam. Yeah, it is. It is good. Lou, thank you very much. That's a generous super chat, man. Yo, Dave, being close to Atmore, you did get on the phone tree for escaping inmates, didn't you? Have a great Father's Day. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's a big prison not that far away. We're also near the Porch Creek Indians. That is a branch of the Creek Indians that never got forced out west. They managed to hold a little piece and have been federally recognized as a tribe. So the Porch Creek Indians are not that far away. There's a pretty cool history around here. But there is that big, like right on the edge of where the Porch Creek are, this great big penitentiary. I have not been there. I should see if they have a gardening program that I could help with. I could probably get some workout tips from the inmates too. Irene says, did you try bokashi? Not as such. I have not tried making bokashi. I generally just ferment a bunch of stuff together and whatever happens, happens. Oh, you bet. Vonry says, please thank your daughter for me, no problem. Carolyn says, I'm in North Florida. Come to my backyard. I have the yam that D to the G gave me 2 years ago. I can't remember the name at this late hour. Dioscorea alata is the variety that somehow ended up in your yard. Tina says, one of the cold hardy pomegranate cuttings took, and now I have a baby. How do I keep it alive? Don't water it too much. Keep it in a sunny spot. They're actually pretty scrappy plants. They like to be planted in drier areas, well-drained areas. Do not plant them in wet areas. They do appreciate water when it's dry, but if the drainage is poor or it's wet or it's swampy or it's clayey, they don't really like that very much, and they'll get rot issues, and sometimes they'll just spontaneously die. They seem to like wide open sun, like right along driveways, dusty, rocky areas. They thrive. Remember where they come from. They grow pomegranates in regions that get like 15 inches of rain a year, period. Dillweed says, we had a chicken die today, so decided to plant the kumquat tree on top of her. The tree is already fruiting. Should I cut the fruits and wait for next year's fruit? Probably doesn't matter that much. Kumquats aren't that big. But if you do take the fruit off, you might get a little more growth out of it. But it's such a small fruit. Now, if it was a little grapefruit tree and it was trying to grow grapefruit, I'd worry about it. But kumquats are, like that big. It's probably fine. Pollinating person's day. Jeez, love cat. Oh. Also, Lou, thank you again for the super chat and happy Father's Day to you as well. I like Father's Day. My family treats me very well. I hope your family does too. They always do something nice. It is good to be a dad. Rosa says, I had a bird run into my window today. It's under a tomato plant now. That's the way to do it. Sheena's Keto Prepared Homestead says, I love learning. I'm still fixing my food forest. 7 years in now. I learned a lot from David. Wish I'd found him years ago. I wish that I had discovered the food forest thing years previously. It's like, I wish I had known about, Bill Mollison's work when I was in my 20s. I think it was, early 20s. I was later on before I really started to get into perennials. It wasn't until I was about 24, 25. If I had been planting perennials 10 years earlier, think how big those trees would be now. But there are fruit trees in like every house that I've ever lived in has trees that I planted in it. So I've left fruit trees all over the place. But I learned a ton about the food forest system by creating my own. It's a great teacher. I Am Goon says, do true yams tolerate occasional frost or clay? They will tolerate clay, but they like it if you smash it up first. If you break the clay up, make mounds out of it, mix in some organic matter too if you have it, that helps a lot. They don't like it if you plant them flat into hard clay. They don't grow well at all. They just sort of struggle and sometimes die. But if you smash a hole in the ground and then make a mound over the top of the hole and plant into that, especially if you throw in a bunch of organic matter, rot, grass clippings or whatever, it doesn't matter, and plant on it, they do better. They do not tolerate frost. The frost will kill the above ground growth. Doesn't mean it's killed the plant. It just means when it frosts, it's done for that year. and it will come back again in the spring when the weather warms up. But he usually doesn't try to keep growing because usually by the time it's cold enough to do a frost, the vines have pretty much stopped growing for the year anyways. Gypsy B says, I'm concerned about the possibility of salmonella after putting raw chicken in my swamp water. Oh, yeah. Tell your sons, tell your daughters about the possibility of salmonella in your swamp water. Tell your sons, tell your daughters about putting raw chicken in your swamp water. Salmonella is a thing that you can get that freaks people out about chicken. If you're slicing up a bunch of drumsticks, your fingers better not be getting a licking. Because you'd be sticking salmonella in your mouth. Okay, that's dumb. That's a really dumb song. Yeah. All that, the swamp water is not safe to apply to plants like directly before you eat them. I usually use it on plants that are growing actively, plants that are in the growing stage, not the harvesting stage. After a week or so, it's not going to matter. I mean, you'd be surprised. The sunlight kills just about, it's all the viruses, bacteria, and everything. The UV breaks them up, knocks them out. If you have wet, drippy, humid conditions and you poured swamp water all over and it was cloudy out, probably it would last a while. But I usually use it in the early stages when, like, at this point of my garden, I am not pouring swamp water on plants that I'm picking peppers from, or where the kids are picking tomatoes or berries or whatever. There's no swamp water going in those gardens right now. The swamp water is for the base of the new, the beans that I just planted that are just starting to grow. For the okra that is this tall, it's like we're the stuff that's still got weeks to go at least, a week or two to go before you harvest out of it. That's when I use most of it. I would not worry about the salmonella. The soil will deal with it. The sun will deal with it. Just don't pour the stuff on anything you're going to use right away. Caden says, I started at 17 and I'm only 19 now. You are ahead of the curve, Caden. I planted my first long-term tree at age 15, and then I had a long gap where I didn't plant many more trees. I planted a few trees when I was 24 was my next set of trees, I guess, when I got a house. Though I think I planted some bananas in my early 20s, but I really got serious about trees later on, so you're ahead of the curve. By the way, Sheena, I'm definitely on the keto train most of the time. I appreciate it. Good diet. Let's see. Hey, Joe, nice to see you, man. DesBDW says, I have a lemon tree. They are the size of a grapefruit. Probably Ponderosa lemon. That's the only one I know of that gets that big. The Ponderosa lemon. Very good. It's a very nice one. Texas Boys, Our Family Story, says we have roughly 400 fruit trees intensively planted in Zone 1 around our house. By the way, I think I subscribed to your channel today. I was watching the video of a pretty lady showing the way around a pantry, talking about pantry plans, and I approve. I definitely think that the stockpiling and canning and jarring and putting things aside, I mean, it's like having a bank account in your house. So I'll be watching you stock your pantry. But thank you, I'm glad you're here. 400 fruit trees, that's crazy. You're gonna have to do a lot of pruning. Have I thought about growing feijoas? Yeah, not seriously, because every time I plant those stupid things, they take so long to make fruit. I mean, like the ones I planted in my food forest, it was like 6 years later, they get their first fruit. I'm like, leave feijoas. Crazy. Bonnery says, are you planting anything this time of year, Dave? Yeah, I'm still planting black-eyed peas. I planted some angle gourds. I planted some okra and some more beans this last week. Just playing around right now. I don't know about the... I don't know. It's going to get hot. It is so brutal right now. And, like, I'm basically probably just going to take care and maintain what I have and see what happens. Love Cat says, I too wish I had known sooner. I planted 3 living Christmas trees on my postage stamp in our first few years here. Should have planted a pecan or such. I agree. Billy says, this is the second year my pepper plants are beginning to bear fruit, but the leaves are turning yellow and the fruit falls off. Any idea what is causing this? There's a few things that could cause it. It could be a pH issue that is keeping them from taking up the maximum nutrition. You might consider foliar feeding them with something, any kind of a fertilizer solution, even diluted urine, watering them so they get enough nutrition. They may just simply not have what they need to continue. But even something like Miracle Grow would be good. But I would get a generic variety of Miracle Grow type of a solution so you don't support the Scott's company, because I've heard they're involved in some weird stuff. But you may just foliar feed them and see what happens, see if they green up. But sometimes it's just like 1 part urine to 6 parts water, and you pour it over the plants a couple of times, and they perk right up and they do better. It also could be too much water, causing fungal issues or something like that. Just put a robin you found in the swamp water today. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Sheena says, absolutely kept my lupus in check. Yeah, it keeps my weight in check. Keeps you from getting too fat. Keeps you strong. I am Goonies starting at 17. Good work. Bell peppers are a pain. Iwan says bell peppers are a pain in the rear. They also taste terrible. They should be illegal. Yes. It's too much work. Our food. Yeah, Texas Boys, our family story says, it's our food 401k. I love it. That's right. I mean, you're going to beat inflation. Good work. I've been stockpiling, my old Ron Paul for president signs and my beans and Mercury dimes, jamming them under the bed. Doing that for years. Still got my Y2K stash. I'm set. Rip says, when will you start planting a fall garden over there? Probably September. Have a good night, Rosehaven. Yeah. Are bananas a tree or a grass? Are bananas a tree or a grass? She said, there's one thing that I must ask. Are bananas a tree or a grass? She looked me in the eye and said, there's one thing I must ask. Are bananas a tree or a grass? Bananas a tree or a grass? Oh yeah, Eric, you can never have enough socks with eyes. Am I ready for 10 inches of rain on Saturday? No. I'll tell you what, I want to put up gutters on this house so I can capture rain. But I talked to my landlord. He's like, I want to do those seamless gutters and stuff. Well, that was like 6 months ago. I'm like, dang it, I could put gutters up in a weekend. I just want to put gutters up right now. But when you're renting, you can't just be like, I'm going to put gutters up. Well, I guess maybe you could, but it doesn't endear you. He wants it to look really nice, whereas I'm just like, let's nail something to the side of the house to catch all the water pouring off the roof, you know. But I would love to get one of those big cisterns and catch those 10 inches of rain would fill a cistern way over the top. I mean, like an inch or two of rain will usually fill a big cistern. But 10 inches, no, I'm not ready for it. I'll hope for the best. It's going to be brutal. Any tips for dealing with powdery mildew? Usually I plant earlier in the year. Z Sandman says milk water. Yes. I find that like a little bit of yogurt, plain yogurt, or kefir mixed in with non-chlorinated water sprayed on the leaves will knock them back. Bananas are an herb. It's a monocot. William, good work. You got it. I think you're further north than me, and you got a Barbados cherry. It's good work. It's a grass tree. Christopher says, here's a tip. If your neighbor just seeded a new lawn, scatter random veggie seeds at night. Then wait to harvest your free veggies. Yeah, I once planted cassava cuttings in a foreclosure house because nobody had done anything with it for years. I just went in the backyard and I dug a bed and I planted cassava. I was so tempted to till the front yard and put in corn. I think that would have been hilarious. That's the sort of thing they will do that in the Caribbean. If a place is just sitting empty, somebody is going to go over there and plant pigeon peas on it. And eventually they'll just say it's theirs. Eric says, are you familiar with Nanking cherry? Mine is on the 3rd year and the new growth is looking a little pale. Is it common or should I give it some nitrogen? I had Nanking cherries in Tennessee. I don't remember them having pale growth. It's probably a nutrient deficiency. Again, like a foliar feed, broad spectrum feed would probably do fine. And it may be a pH issue. If you don't know what your pH is, if your pH is too acid or too alkaline, you will get yellow growth because the plant's not able to take up what it needs from the ground. I would give it a little nitrogen and see what happens. I don't think it's supposed to be, the new growth is supposed to be particularly yellow. Sometimes, I mean, some trees are like that. If it goes a week or two and it's still yellow and it hasn't greened up in the sun, then probably it's deficient. It's just staying yellow, you know. Could probably make a French drain or something, but it's kind of a pain. Couple of rain chains and call it I don't even know what a rain chain is. I haven't heard of that. A buried cistern. I mean, yeah, but it is still a rental. You know, burying a cistern seems kind of intense. Have I gotten more rain in Alabama than in the tropics? It's supposed to get more rain here. I think we got about 60 inches or so of rain where we were, and here it's like 80 something. So Thomas says, this is a great YouTube live format, David. Thank you. Oh, you're very welcome. Oh, you're further south than me. Okay. Southwest corner of Alabama, near to Mississippi. I almost drove past you the other day then. I drove over to Mississippi. Never been to Mississippi before. Scott says, I've got cherry pits stratifying in the fridge. About to put some nectarine and plum pits in as well. I think, yeah, I've got a few on my desk here. Peach pits, and I've got a bowl of cherry pits I'm going to sprout. They're from California, so we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. Christopher says, just found this channel so awesome. We are so ready to start our first garden. Any advice for what to grow in Oklahoma? Well, Oklahoma's not my forte, but I'll tell you, I'll give you general principles. If you want to feed your family and you're concerned about the future and you want to get as many calories as possible and actually be full, I would concentrate on grain corn, and I would grow pumpkins, and I would grow root crops. So potatoes. And if you can grow sweet potatoes, I would grow those too. Probably a shorter season sweet potato. Oklahoma's not that cold. You can basically base your garden on high calories for my family. I've got food in the ground that will feed my family. Then after that, plant for the highest nutrition. So kale, cabbage, herbs, that kind of thing. and garlic. So if you want to find out what grows well in your area, find out what's being grown commercially. Say if your area is growing lots of corn, you could probably grow corn quite well. If your area is known for, say, pecans, pecans are probably going to grow well. So you could find out some that way. You can also, if you go to church, ask at church, does anybody here garden? Are there any gardeners in this church? Once you meet a gardener, then you say, how do you grow what you grow, and what do you grow? What grows really well here? And then you'll get all the information you need. You basically just piggyback off of somebody else's knowledge. If you see a nice garden by the side of the road in your neighborhood, go to their front door, knock, say hello. Hi, I hate to bother you, but your garden is beautiful, and I'm starting a garden here for the first time. Can you give me any tips? Gardeners love to talk about their gardens. You will not make enemies that way. Nobody's going to care. You're going to have friends, new friends. I just did that this last week. Earlier this week. Just stopped by the side of the road and talked to a guy because I liked his garden and asked him how he was growing, what he was growing. Big help. Now, if you're more concerned about, how do we save money on our budget, figure out what foods that your family eats all the time. What vegetables do you already eat? And then concentrate on growing those. Country Homestead Preacher says, David, do you think that rabbit manure, red worm compost is a marketable product? Oh, yeah. I'd buy it. I bought some worm compost for my tests this last fall. Christopher says, I like planting seed potatoes. The look in their eyes as you bury them alive is priceless. Yes. And they're affordable, too. You can get a tuber one sale. William says, we bought a tray of apricots from Costco, planning on propagating the pits. Oh, yeah, it's fun. I have an apricot out in the garden that I got as a bare root. I ordered it, and it's still growing. I can't believe it. It looks great. I hope that it makes fruit. So, Chris says hello from Arkansas. More Terra Preta soil vids. I will. I just I have to dig. I'm waiting for a garden bed to be completely empty so I can Terra Preta it. You said it. You said the thing. Yeah, you can plant what duplicates easily. That's true, too. Well, we have just passed 1 hour. I know we started this good stream on a sad note. Remember to pray for this family that lost their son. They have other children who now don't have a little brother, and this is one of our good gardeners who lost their child in a very, very bad way. So if you guys could keep them in prayer, the Lord knows who they are. I can't give their names, but she wrote me and asked for prayer, so let's pray for them before we go. Heavenly Father, we don't know why this tragedy happened. We don't know how you could bring any good from something so awful, Father. But we know that you love the little children. You told people to bring the children to you, Father, when your disciples wanted to send them away because they were bugging people. Send those kids out of here. And Lord, you lost your own son, and so you know what it's like. So, Father, we just pray that you'll bring some sort of peace and healing. We really don't have any answers, Father, but we know that you're ultimately in control, and you're the one that brings us back together in the end. And we just commit this family to you and anyone else who's dealing with loss right now, Father. In Jesus' name. Amen. So, remember to pray for them, please. I wanted to like I said, I was gonna do I wanted to do a good stream yesterday and stuff, but I was just still kind of I was really shook up. Um, but you guys pray, that's a good thing. And tomorrow morning I should post a new video that shows the biochar grinder crusher charger. So we'll do that. And I think for those nerdier among you, you will appreciate that. It's kind of cool. And it's really sort of an obnoxious thing. What we did with it is fun. But you guys, thank you all for the super chats. Thank you to the members. Thank you for giving up prayers for this family that needs it right now. And no, I'm not ready for the rain. Good luck with your summer gardening. I will catch you guys soon. Thank you all for the prayers. I know the family is going to appreciate it. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine. So, God bless you all. Have a good night. Kiss your kids. Hug your wife. Hug your husband. You know. And I'll catch you all next time. Until then, may your thumbs always be green.